across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening to you. This is Talk and this is Petrie, and I'm with you all the way through until 1 o'clock. Coming up in the programme, of course, at midnight, it is the Talk Back Hour, and that is for you to do exactly that, to talk back. It's a full hour, just you and me, so nothing else in there, so we can just get really into the topic of the day. And I really want to talk to you about trillionaire Elon Musk. He's the richest man in the world now, and yet he's the least philanthropic. He doesn't really give any of his money away. He put about 8.5 billion, which is a lot, into a charity, but most of that money is just languishing there. It doesn't really go anywhere. So he's the least I can't say the word philanthropic. Anyway, the least philanthropic. And I've got a list of the 25 richest people and what they do with their money. And the question I want to ask you is, I mean, that is so much money in the hands of one human being. First of all, do you think that that should be allowed, first of all? And second of all, what should they do with that sort of money? I mean, should they be compelled to give a little bit back or a lot of it back? What would you do if you were suddenly a billionaire or a trillionaire? I'll get into the numbers and the difference between, because we hear these numbers bandied around so much that actually they lose all meaning. They really don't mean very much. A trillionaire, billionaire, millionaire. But the difference between them is so stark and so incredible that it is mind-blowing. So we will be talking about that, the mega rich, and what should they do with their money. And many of you will think, well, they can do what they like with it. That's exactly what most of them are doing. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. So that's coming up at midnight. Claire Muldoon is joining us to go through the papers at 11. Petrie Hosken, author and journalist, yeah, the name's the same for a reason, is going to be here to talk about the potential of this being Starmer's last week. All of that is to come. But first of all, the G7 summit has begun, and there was some really awkward images of Donald Trump standing next to Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron was busy trying to schmooze Trump. Trump looked like he would rather be anywhere else than standing next to Macron. They have fallen out, of course, in the past, we know. But the summit has begun today in France as US and Iran have reached a new, well, they say peace deal brokered by Pakistan, but it is not a full peace deal. The agreement includes an immediate ceasefire in the region, and crucially for global markets, it promises to unlock the blockaded Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping. While formal signing ceremony is set to take place at the G7 on Friday, Iran framed it as a victory and a defeat for the US and for Israel. Leaders from the US, UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy and Japan are gathering to also discuss global economic growth and geopolitical crises. But to dig further into this memorandum of understanding, which could lead to a peace deal, I'm delighted to say Sean Bell joins me now, military analyst, former Air Vice Marshal in the RAF and co-director of Red Matrix Productions. Sean, thank you so much for joining me.
Good evening, Petrie.
Now, I can't help but look back to the 27th of February, when the Strait of Hormuz was open and the US and Iran were in discussions about nuclear enrichment. It feels like we're in the same place, and yet in between that, billions of dollars have been spent, thousands of lives have been lost, but we don't seem to have moved anywhere.
No, and in a way, it's slightly worse than that, isn't it? Because Iran was at that stage a sort of pariah state with no leverage, no control, no influence. And now, all of a sudden, it has all of those. So it actually feels emboldened. I think that's probably one of the reasons, going full circle back to the G7, some very awkward moments. The G7 leaders minus Trump have all looked at themselves and gone, what the hell was this war all about? President Trump will inevitably be walking around celebrating success and trying to highlight the positives. But amongst his political peers, it's going to be very evident that this has been an ocean-going disaster for America. And we haven't seen the last act of this yet, because we still haven't seen the deal. It does look rather as if it's a bit of a palliative for Iran, and they're not going to solve the nuclear issue anytime soon.
I mean, there's so many of what Donald Trump first of all said were his aims, which have completely collapsed here. It is easy to see why Iran is suggesting this has been a victory for them and a loss for the US. But in a way, this has displayed a weakness with the US, hasn't it, around the world, that actually it hasn't won this in the way that Trump would have wanted to have won it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting when the history books are written about this, because President Trump, he runs the major political and military superpower in the world. And yet you brought that to bear against arguably a sort of third world nation when it comes to military capability. But because America's not prepared to put boots on the ground, military action itself hasn't led to strategic success for President Trump. And I think the irony here, when you look back, some would argue that America realized that they'd lost on the 8th of April, when, of course, the ceasefire was called. It was pretty evident that America was getting nowhere with the military action. But I would argue, I mean, you could use the 27th of February. I would argue the 1st of March is when they actually lost, because when they launched everything on the 28th of February, that first act, they managed, the Americans and Israelis killed most of the senior leadership, Ayatollah Khomeini and many of the others. If they had stopped then, it would have sent a powerful message. You'll remember at the time, some of the Iranians were doing an uprising, and Donald Trump had said, we're here to help you. The number one priority for the regime was always to stay in power. And if they'd seen all of them wiped out, they'd looked around and gone, who else is going to be next? It might have changed their course. As it turned out, America just carried on with the military action. I have played Iran in those war games. So what followed next was entirely predictable. And I think it just demonstrates that whatever happened there, American military is enormously capable. But for some reason, President Trump clearly didn't listen to the advice that was given and thought that he could bully his way into success. Quite the opposite has occurred.
Trump is also declaring that that this is going to be the most peace that the Middle East will see, and that he has brought that about, that he has now brought about this new era of peace in the Middle East. But many people are suggesting that actually it's going to take a very long time for those relationships to repair to even where they were before this started.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things that before the war, as you said, the Strait of Hormuz was open. Donald Trump managed to close it with the war and then celebrated when he's got it open again. Well, it's a bit like starting a fire and then celebrating when you put it out. It's rather ridiculous. What you've left up now is that Iran has demonstrated it can control the Strait of Hormuz and therefore put its foot on the throat of the global energy markets. And you can't undo that. You can't put that genie back on the bottle. And for the Gulf states, they will be very worried. This has been enormously painful for them economically, because obviously all of their exports have stopped. And there's been some of the damage done by Iran. I think it's Qatar said it'll be 5 years before some of that is repaired. Donald Trump didn't confide with the Middle East colleagues before he went in. And even though America has some of the best air defense systems in the world, it was pretty evident that the ballistic missiles fired by Iran, some of them did get through. So the Middle East will be looking, going, why are we in bed with America? What did that provide? They'll be licking their wounds and trying to work out what to do in the future. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Well,
that could be disastrous, couldn't it, for America? Because they signed, I think was it in the 70s, the agreement to use the petrodollar in return for that kind of protection. If they go back on that, and it's no longer signed, it's run out of time, then that could be devastating for America if those countries say, well, look, we don't trust you now on security, and therefore the petrodollar is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that if I was, the head of one of the Middle East countries, there's two things you're going to be worried about. One of it is you're heavily dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for exporting your energy and gas. So you're going to find other ways around it. Now, Saudi Arabia has built a massive pipeline completely the opposite way out of the country to the Red Sea, so it can offload oil to there. Qatar is building a pipeline south to try and bypass the Strait of Hormuz. I suspect all of them, even though they're monumental products, they've got a lot of money, and therefore that's what they'll look to do. The second question is, how do you stop yourself getting attacked by Iran? And there are ways to deal with that, but it is pretty evident that America might not be the right partner for them. That might create opportunities, because you will recall, I know we're a tiny little island nation, but in Qatar, we did step forward. We helped provide Typhoon support. That's been shooting down drones and cruise missiles. And from my experience, the Middle East, if you stand with them in the difficult times, they're prepared to stand with you through the good times. And it might well be that actually that provides some of the financial bedrock of our defence investment plan, because frankly, we need to build up, because at the moment the harsh reality for me is that although we've watched Qatar and some of the Middle East countries get attacked because some of these ballistic missiles got through, they did at least have the benefit of the best protection money could buy, Patriot systems, THAAD systems and like. We in our country have no ballistic missile defense. I say again, we have none at all, and therefore if Russia, which is not a third world country, it's a first world country with a lot of capability, we are incredibly vulnerable, and that's why pressure is being brought to bear at the moment for the government to try and find a way of addressing the massive capability gaps we have in this country and start to provide some credible defence and deterrence against Russia.
It's like you said, we need the cash for that. Maybe the Middle East will be the answer. Let's go back to the Strait, because you mentioned that just a moment ago, and how Iran now knows for absolutely certain that it can control that in a heartbeat. It can just say we've dropped one mine, right? And everyone's going to back off. So they know they can do that. There seems to be some contradiction about what's going to happen with the Strait of Hormuz, because Donald Trump is saying it's open and there won't be any tolls. J.D. Vance has said there won't be any tolls. Iran, however, are saying that they want to manage the Strait of Hormuz, and there will be tolls. Which is it's an open seaway, isn't it? So that would be against maritime law. The Suez Canal is man-made. That's why they can charge tolls in the Panama Canal. But is it likely that we're going to go back to what the Strait was before this all happened?
Well, it's a really interesting question. I think it's very difficult to see how America could agree to Iran charging anything to go through the Strait. I have no doubt that as a negotiating point, Iran will have that on the table. Let's be quite clear. Iran will have a load of things on the table, not all of which they will expect to secure. The things they will have on the table that they will hope to secure are an easing of sanctions, potentially getting rid of them altogether, because that's made it very difficult for them to sell their oil. And the other one is there are billions of dollars worth of assets frozen around the world, and some reports well over 100 billion. If they can get those released, that will be a really, really big fill-up. If they've also got things like the potential for charging tolls, then that could be a card that they're prepared to give up. I think the challenge at the moment is that it's all very well President Trump saying, let the oil flow. But first of all, you've got to clear that minefield. If the Iranians are helpful, the Iranians have something like 5,000 mines. We don't think they're all in the Strait. We believe there's about a dozen in there. That shouldn't be a difficult task to clear. And I think that's why, there'll be interesting conversations with President Trump, Macron and Starmer, because they've all agreed to help clear those mines. We've got a minesweeper, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary Lime Bay, which is in the region. That sends remote drones to go and find these mines and then disable them. So we can play a part, but we are only prepared to do that once the hostilities are ended. They're not ended until there's a signature. The signature isn't due till Friday. And quite frankly, at the moment, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu may well still upset the apple cart.
Well, that's what I wanted to come to next, is the Israel question. Because it seemed that yesterday, when this deal was meant to be signed on Donald Trump's birthday, that the attack in Beirut was a deliberate message from Netanyahu to potentially derail any peace talks. Netanyahu does not want this memorandum signed. They're saying that America's saying that Lebanon and Israel's behaviour isn't part of this memorandum of understanding, and yet again the Iranians are saying no, it very much, and the Pakistanis are saying no, it very much is supposed to be in this memorandum of understanding. So where are we with that?
I think the slight irony here is at the start of the war, Israel and America were lockstep together. You know, they wanted to stop Iran getting a nuclear weapon, because if it did, it'd be an existential threat to Israel. But of course, Iran sponsors Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And the Hamas and certainly Hezbollah have caused all sorts of problems over the years for Israel. Now Israel smells blood. It knows that Hezbollah is weak, Iran is weak, and on the back of that, they are now pushing Hezbollah further and further back in southern Lebanon, establishing a buffer zone. Now, they've done this in the past up to the Litani River. It doesn't mean much without a map, but it looks like they're going at least twice that distance. They're trying to create a buffer zone this time, and they have no interest whatsoever in stopping this. Netanyahu said he believes he's not part of the deal. He's not a signatory to the deal. And also, it's worth noting there are quite a few hardliners in Netanyahu's government that actually do not want to be seen to be at the beck and call of the US president, because actually, you know, every nation's entitled to its own priorities, and therefore Israel is trying to step out on its own. It'll be a massive test of what the relationship between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu actually is. Can Trump influence or indeed control Netanyahu? And that will all play out in the coming days, because I'm confident that if we don't get him in step by Friday, the Iranians have already threatened to take action, and that could completely derail these peace talks.
I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? When you've got this triangle, if you like, of and different ideas of what a win looks like, but also with Iran, as you mentioned earlier, the Iran will have come out of this in a much better position, and it sort of makes me think about how Russia's done really well out of this war as well. So the bad guys are winning.
Well, let's park Russia for a second. I think what's the war, it'll be interesting. The history books have been written about this. As a military guy, having played Iran in some of the war games before, the irony here is America has one of the most powerful militaries in the world, and I've worked with them. They're incredibly professional, but they're a means to an end. You have to, it's the politicians who send you to war. And what I suspect has happened here is Donald Trump went into Venezuela, plucked out Maduro in a short, sharp shock, and he probably thought, you remember the uprising of the Iranian people, if I can go in there and cut the head off the snake, kill the Ayatollah and the senior leadership, there'll be an uprising, and I'll have been seen to be the brave, courageous president that's actually brought this to bear. The big mistake he made was that just continuing with the military action after that, because I'm sure his military advisors would have said, look, we can pummel the Iranian conventional military to pieces, but you will not have an answer to their threats for the Strait of Hormuz. They've had 35 years to prepare bespoke fast patrol boats that are hidden, anti-ship missiles and drones and the like. You will never be able to deal with those, and they will close the Strait of Hormuz. There's nothing we can do about it. And all of a sudden, we'll have the rest of the world looking at us going, get the strait open. There's a global energy crisis. And all of a sudden, Iran, from being a pariah state, now finds itself on the side of the rest of the world, all unified against America. And all of a sudden, the Strait of Hormuz is the central issue for negotiation when it wasn't an issue before the war. And the whole issue of nuclear, everybody's going, okay, America, you can deal with that downstream. Just get this energy crisis over. It's a really interesting twist. And I'm sure President Trump will be scratching his head trying to work out how the hell that happened.
Except that he was advised that it would. Let's very quickly look at Russia, if you don't mind, Russia and Ukraine. And we've seen some really desperate actions by Russia recently in bombing areas of Ukraine. Ukraine, in the meantime, is pushing the Russian line back. They've reclaimed hundreds of kilometres of land. What is going on? Is Putin getting really scared? Because I've been reading a lot about Russia, and the Russian people are absolutely furious about the way this war is going. Could that put pressure on Putin? Does he care enough? And what is happening there?
Well, it is interesting. We're always looking for extremes. You know, is Russia winning? Is Ukraine winning? I think we're seeing just a slight shift in the tides. I think it was back in April, for the first time, Ukraine took more territory than Russia did. We've also seen in the first 3 months of the year, Russia lost more soldiers than it could recruit. All of those are just indications. We fully expected in this summer that Russia would do a major offensive. It might still do so. And if you're going to do that, you tend to take soldiers from spread across the front and focus them. That leaves you vulnerable in other areas of the front, and therefore might explain why Russia is losing a bit of ground. But I think if you look at this more widely, Ukraine was heavily reliant on the West for long-range weapons. America provided those, but actually in the last year, that's massively backed off. So what the West has been able to do is provide Ukraine with the ingredients, not a finished article, but a box of bits that says, if you bolt bit A to bit B to bit C and create your own missile, we can't guarantee it. It hasn't done all the safety testing and all that sort of stuff that takes years to do. But you're at war. We're pretty confident it'll work. Bolt it all together, fire it off. And Ukraine has become very effective. It's developed its own long-range missiles and also drones. It's been very effective at targeting a lot of Russian oil, particularly deep behind the front line. That is causing gasoline shortages. Plus, of course, the West was maintaining sanctions on its oil. The frustration was when Donald Trump lifted that autonomously because he wanted to drive down the price of oil for his domestic market. But that's a central pillar of the West. And I think that's why we saw just a few days ago the UK board that the Shadow Fleet Russian tanker, because one tanker is not going to make a great deal of difference. But actually, if you looked at the rest of the Shadow Fleet trackers that were all making their way around, they bombed after that. So this will have an impact on Russia's ability to sell its oil. That will have an impact on how it funds the war. So I think all the indicators are just starting to swing from Russia's way towards Ukraine's way. Do I think that means that Ukraine's on the front foot? No, they've got a hell of an uphill struggle, but it isn't looking so good for Russia as it was perhaps 6 months ago.
I mean, it's still extraordinary to me, Sean, that Ukraine have held off Russia for this. Like, nobody really saw that coming. Extraordinary people. And so are you. Thank you for joining me. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time. Sean Bell there, military analyst, former Air Vice Marshal in the RAF and co-director of Red Matrix Productions. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course at midnight it is your turn to talk back, and I want to talk to you about the world's first trillionaire, and that is Elon Musk. We're going to be talking to a professor of mathematics about that in about 20 minutes time, actually, just to get an idea of what that sort of money looks like. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think that the mega rich should do with their money? Should there be some way of compelling them, I don't know, to donate, to give to charity? Or, I mean, some of them do, but Musk is the richest man in the world and yet the least philanthropic. He's got all this money now. Admittedly, it's not in cash, but what this stock means for him is that he can now borrow against that stock, get liquid cash, and not pay tax on it. So he's not paying tax on that sort of money either. So I just wonder if, when we look at these, I mean, it seems absolutely ridiculous to me that so much money, and therefore power, is in one man's hands. We know that the mega rich are getting mega richy, and the poor are getting poorer, and it just seems the balance is completely off shift for me. I don't begrudge, I'm not jealous of, I don't understand that sort of wealth. I just know that I wouldn't be able to handle it. I would have to give it away. I would feel guilty. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And I would want to help people. And that is just me. I mean, I'd want to be rich as well. I'd keep some of it, obviously. I'd make sure my family are okay, and my friends are okay, and obviously my producer and vision mixer and technical director, they'd all be okay. I'd make sure you were all right. But, you know, after that, I would have to give it away. I would absolutely have to give it away. That's just me. So what would you do? And what do you think the mega rich should do? And what is this about having to have so much money? What is that about? I don't understand it. 03444 499 1000 and text the word talk and your message to 87222. Well, we have some exciting news to share with you from our friends at TalkSport. With the World Cup underway, TalkSport and Meantime have teamed up to create a lager. You won't need to be a trillionaire for this. It's called So Good Lager, which will be poured from all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK, and you can find your nearest pub by visiting talksport.com/so good. It's 18 plus, and please drink responsibly. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and it's just 3 days to go. How excited are you? Until the Makerfield by-election that could prove to be a true existential threat for Keir Starmer's premiership. engineered by the sudden resignation of Josh Sims MP. The contest provides Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham a chance to get straight back into Westminster. A Burnham victory is seen as the opening salvo for a formal leadership challenge against the Prime Minister, severely weakened by cabinet walkouts and devastating local election defeats. However, a major surge from Reform UK's Robert Kenyon could deliver a fatal blow, effectively shattering Starmer's authority from either flank, because that would then, other people would then come up for a leadership challenge. They may wait until September for the party conferences, but if Andy Burnham's going to go for it, there is a reckoning that if he does win, that he will go for it as early as Friday and mount a challenge. I will be reading out, I know you can't wait to hear them, but I will be reading out the full list of candidates for the Makerfield by-election, as, of course, the law requires. But first, let's talk to Andrew Hosken, who's author and journalist, former senior correspondent at the BBC. Andrew, good to see you. Listen.
Yeah, good to see you.
So we got the by-election on Thursday. Those poor people of Makerfield, all they have to do at the moment is just vote in that part of the world. But how is this looking, do you think? And Burnham, by no means, it's a walk in the park for him, right?
Well, no, I mean, going by the recent polls, it looks like Andy Burnham is in the lead, ahead of Reform. But, depending on what poll you believe. But it's hard to overstate how extraordinary this is. This has never happened before in Labour Party history. The only time Labour leaders have been changed sort of midstream, for example, have been in 1976, when Harold Wilson unexpectedly resigned. There was a leadership election which was won by James Callaghan. And then, of course, in 2007, after 10 years at the helm, Tony Blair stood down and unchallenged Gordon Brown took over as the Prime Minister. Of course, we've seen Tories being hacked down by their membership very regularly over the years. In fact, hardly any of them seems to ever see out their natural term before being toppled by their colleagues. But as far as the Labour Party goes, it's utterly unprecedented. So you've got that extraordinary aspect. The other extraordinary aspect is that we have a by-election which could actually decide who the future Prime Minister is going to be. And that's a very rare occurrence. I can't think of any precedent for that either. And of course, it'll answer a number of questions. It'll answer the question is, well, can Labour actually hang on to what have been up till now safe seats in Labour areas, or will these seats fall to Reform, and what will that mean in a future general election, which could only be 2 years away? So there's all these questions that will be answered in one way or another on Thursday.
And Andy Burnham, you get the impression that he does think that this is his to take, that this by-election is his because of his popularity in that part of the world, or that part of Britain. But I've spoken to a few people through the phones here who live under a Burnham mayoralship, and they're saying, look, he's not all that cracked up. He's not all he's cracked up to be. Why are people seeing him as the Messiah?
Well, I mean, the by-election is being held to get Andy Burnham into Parliament. George Simons explicitly resigned his seat. He'd only been an MP since July 2024, so that he could have a crack at the title, so to speak, because you can't be the leader of the Labour Party or indeed then the Prime Minister if you're not a Member of Parliament. So this is why this election is happening. And it is a gamble for Andy Burnham, because if he doesn't win it, he's all washed up and that's it. And then it depends whether or not there's going to be an election at all. But I think in terms of, yes, you're right. I mean, there may be an issue, the question, well, is Andy Burnham popular in the north, where he's been the mayor of the metropolitan area of the north? Well, yes, that is true, and that'll be answered in Makerfield again. That's one of the questions that will be answered. But the other bigger question about it is whether or not he'll be able to appeal to people in the south, where he's less known and less regarded. And that is a big issue, and that is something that the Labour Party clearly is going to have to think about. If, for all his other faults, perhaps, and at least Keir Starmer is a man of the South. You know, he's Islington through and through, and represents sort of metropolitan Labour Party. So, and of course, he will stand in any leadership election that takes place. So these are big questions that need to be answered. I mean, yes, I've been to Manchester and I reported from Manchester. I've interviewed Andy Burnham in Manchester as mayor of Manchester. And yes, he's done lots of things in Manchester, and he's very popular in parts of that area. But again, will he be popular throughout the rest of the country, in Wales, where Labour is under threat and challenge, and in Scotland as well? And these are big questions that no one really knows the answers to.
And that Labour's going to have to answer very quickly. I mean, Andy Burnham needs 81 people to back him. It looks like he'll easily get that 81 in order to mount a challenge. And he's looking at doing that now. I mean, if he wins, he will do it on Friday or as soon as possible, because of the weakened state of Keir Starmer after John Healey and Al Khan's quit over funding for defence. So, you know, normally they would perhaps wait, like I said, until maybe September to get all their ducks in a row, to get everything sorted. But it feels like Andy Burnham's going to just swipe in there as quickly as possible.
I think so. As you know, there are 403 Labour members of Parliament. To challenge for leadership, you need 20% of those. That comes to 81. So yes, he'll need to get to 81 members, and then he can trigger a leadership challenge. The incumbent doesn't have to have 81 members because they can stand automatically for the leadership election. So Keir Starmer won't have to stump up those numbers, so he will stand. I mean, it's going to be a messy business. It's going to be nasty, and of course the priority for the Labour Party will be to sort of shorten this period as quickly as possible. I mean, the instability it will cause. Also, it doesn't look great internationally, does it? I mean, we get, yet again, Britain is replacing its Prime Minister. This will be now the 6th in 10 years. I mean, we are beginning to look a little bit like a banana republic. And that's being sort of unfair to some banana republics to go through so many Prime Ministers. And of course, you know, Keir Starmer did win a 170-seat overall majority at the general election. So people will be surprised to think, well, why on earth, you know, when we voted what we thought was for stability, are we going through this political instability over again? So it is a massive gamble for Labour, because even if Burnham wins it, will he be popular? Or will he be another sort of washout that people will turn against? And will that make the reform's chances of the next election even better? So it is an enormous gamble for Labour, no matter what happens.
And as you said, it does make us look like a laughing stock. Keir Starmer's at the G7 meeting in France right now. And I've been reading up about that. And apparently a lot of the world leaders are saying there's no point talking to him. I don't believe he's got a meeting with Donald Trump penciled in. Because, I mean, you know... People are going,
well, he's got problems of his own.
Yeah. Is there any point in chatting with Keir Starmer? And the other question is, of course, is how will Andy Burnham, should he take that position, be viewed on the world stage? He doesn't have any experience.
Well, not as someone who's terribly loyal for a kick-off.
Yeah.
He stabbed his own leader in the front, let alone the back. So there's that aspect of it. I mean, you know, and Keir Starmer has been seen to be a bit more sort of a strong leader. I mean, he's, you know, for example, he authorised the raid on the ship that was taking Russian oil through the Channel. He's been very, adamant that we need this ban on social media for 60 and under. And so he's becoming across more decisive, and I think he's determined to fight against Andy Burnham. So it's not a shoo-in for Andy Burnham by any stretch of the imagination. And of course, there'll be other people who fancy their chances as well of becoming Labour leader. So I think it's going to be quite a melee, as they would say in the Middle Ages, you know, of all these big knights hacking away at each other in the middle of a muddy field. Politically, it's going to be very unappetizing. But of course, Keir Starmer still has a country to run. And he still has to talk to these world leaders, and he still has reset talks with the European Union. I mean, the business of the government must go on. And I think lots of people are getting sick and tired of this continual, aren't they?
Yeah.
Your viewers must be sick and tired.
They are absolutely. We're all sick and tired of it, because they're not concentrating on running the country, are they? They're mucking around.
It's another Westminster drama.
Yeah,
it's another political crisis to go with all the others, when people do want the country just to be run and for things to be put right and all the rest of it. So there's that also that's a very risky thing for the Labour Party to be doing to the country as well. This ennui that people have about the political shenanigans endlessly, year after year, going on at Westminster and Whitehall. So there's that to sort of play against. But at the end of the day, you know, that is why whatever's going to happen over the next few weeks, if Andy Burnham does win this by-election, as he looks like he's going to, I think the impetus from the Labour Party, which after all is in control of the government and the political agenda, the impetus will be to get this messy business done as quickly as possible and to get on with the business of, you know, running the country and trying to win the next general election, which is what the whole thing is all about anyway.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you know, as we were saying, it might not be Andy Burnham's to win. It depends on the day, as you said. I mean, the idea of a safe seat, I think, has probably gone. I don't, you know, we used to be able to say, well, they've got a safe seat. They've got. I think that's been torn to shreds now. So what happens if Reform does win this seat? You know, what happens then? I mean, there's some talk about that they would win if Restore wasn't there, eating away at the votes. That the right wing votes are split, and what happens then? I mean, Keir Starmer's not free, is he? He's not got away with it.
No, I mean, it'd be very interesting, wouldn't it, to sort of get Keir Starmer into a confessional box if he was a religious Catholic and you were a priest, and ask him what he'd really like the result to be.
Yeah.
Maybe that he wouldn't mind Reform winning this one and Andy Burnham to be shot down in flames forever. That which would be the result, of course, because there's no way Andy Burnham could come back from being defeated in his own backyard by Reform.
Yeah.
So yes, it would be. I think it would probably be a bit of a pause for Keir Starmer. Of course, it would send out the very worrying message that Reform is winning safe Labour seats, what were safe Labour seats. At the last election in this area, of course, Denton Gaunton, it was won by the Green Party.
Yeah. Which again belied the whole idea that this was a safe area for Labour.
But we are seeing, as you said, quite accurately, extraordinarily enough, the end of the Labour Conservative Punch and Judy show, with a bit sometimes with the Liberal Democrats having a walk-on part, carrying the spears on the side, and that we are seeing the end of two-party politics. You know, which is an incredible thing. You know, we're seeing changes across England, in Wales and Scotland, with this SNP, you know, becoming stronger. The Plaid Cymru in Wales, Reform picking up seats from Conservatives and Labour. I mean, that is a phenomenon that we haven't seen before. You know, normally insurgent parties have taken, you know, voters from one particular party, not two of the main parties. And as you say, it's very difficult to think of any seats now, Conservative or Labour, which you could say, yep, that's a safe seat. In a way, that's good because, you know, some people live in safe Conservative areas that they might vote Labour, and therefore, you know, what they think doesn't matter a hoot.
Yeah.
And maybe it is time we started thinking about electoral change, which is one of the things that people are saying the Labour Party has had a brilliant opportunity to do and is probably going to flunk to do. But yeah, so it is a time of real political change. And no one can really read the future, what's going to happen, no matter what happens as a result of this particular by-election.
Well, what will happen is at some stage Keir Starmer will be challenged, whether it be by Andy Burnham or...
That looks certain, you know, whether it's Wes Streeting, for example, who's already suggested he wants to run as leader. Other people will fancy their chances, Yvette Cooper.
Ed Miliband.
Particularly Ed Miliband, I think. Yes, potentially, I think he's had a go at it before and, you know, lost an election as Labour leader. We all remember the Ed Stone. Do you remember when he had this?
Yes, I do.
Poor chap. You don't think he lived that down. It's disappeared since. There was this great sort of like gravestone.
It really was, yeah.
Tombstone.
With the carvings on it.
With all these promises chiselled in, and it was called the Ed Stone because it did look a bit like a headstone. So it wasn't a great general election for Labour under Ed Miliband. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Vanity, all is vanity. He may fancy his chances, but other people will also fancy the chances. But that will only sort of elongate this period of political instability for the country, for Labour as well. So it is not a great time for any of the political parties, main political parties, to be operating at the moment.
Andrew, brilliant to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Hosken there, author and journalist. Quick break, and then I'm back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yep, this is Talk, and I am Petrie, and I need to read you a list of the full contingent of the Makerfield by-election. So it's Jake Austin for the Liberal Democrats, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, and Michael Winstanley for the Conservative Party. So those are all running in the Makerfield by-election, which takes place on Thursday. Now, though, Elon Musk has become the world's first trillionaire after the record-breaking stock market debut of his company SpaceX. According to Bloomberg, Musk's estimated net worth sits at about $1.11 trillion, well above wealthy billionaires topping the rich lists like Google co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and the boss of French luxury goods group LVMH, Bernard Arnault. So all of that, he's way above all of those. Now the world's richest man. Joining me to discuss this is Richard Elwes, who is Associate Professor of Mathematics at the University of Leeds and author of Huge Numbers. Good to meet you. Well, these are huge numbers, aren't they? The world's richest man, now worth more than $1 trillion. Can you put that into, because we bandy around million, billion, trillion, right, as these numbers. They don't really mean it, they don't resonate. What does that actually mean to be a trillionaire?
Yeah, that's right. I think these numbers do blur a little bit, so it's worth having a go at trying to bring some sense to it. I think $1 million is probably a number which people have got some sort of grasp of. Obviously, $1 million or £1 million, it's a lot of money, but it's maybe not an unimaginably large amount of money. So maybe one way of thinking about $1 trillion is that it's a million. So you're a millionaire 1 million times over if you've got $1 trillion. That's maybe one way of thinking about it. Another way, I was trying to come up with some interesting ideas, and one statistic which might be fun is that there have been approximately 100 billion people who've ever lived. So Elon Musk could afford to send every single person who's ever lived $10. Thought that
wow, ever lived, every single person's
lived. Yeah,
ever
not just
lived.
not
Not just now.
If we limit to people who are alive now, there's just under 10 billion people, so he could send everyone in the world $100. But if we broaden out to everyone who's ever lived, he could send them about $10 each. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is extraordinary wealth, but is he really that rich? In the terms of, you know, of what I would consider rich in his bank account, for example.
Well, I think he is by the standards of any individual, he is incredibly rich. I think that's right. But when you're dealing with sums of money, or indeed just numbers more generally, things are always relative. So if you measure Elon Musk against any other individual person, even the second richest person in the world, he's extremely wealthy compared to any other person. But for example, if UK GDP was said to be it was said to be $1 trillion or pounds, there would be gloom across the country because our national GDP needs to be much higher than that. So in that sense, $1 trillion would be a small quantity of money if you're measuring it on that sort of scale. So everything's relative, but from the point of view of an individual, there's no two ways about it. He is just incredibly rich.
What sort of things could he afford to do, apart from giving us all, a couple of quid each? What sort of things could he do? I mean, saw somebody the other day suggest that he could sort out world poverty, but only for a year with $1 trillion. So what other things would that money buy?
That's right. So I mean, I think $1 trillion is the sort of amount of money which it's not enough to solve at a stroke the biggest problems that we as a species or civilization face, right? It's not that level of amount of money. He couldn't solve cancer at a stroke. He couldn't solve global poverty at a stroke. However, I mean, it's the sort of amount of money which any sort of charity which is in any of those fields and working on would be very grateful to receive. So it could make an impact on any of those causes, but no, it's not quite the level where you can just sort of click your fingers and all our problems are solved.
I'm starting to feel sorry for him now. Maybe he's not that rich after all. But when you look at Elon Musk, he's the richest man in the world, but he's the least philanthropic. I mean, I know there's no rule that says rich people have got to be kind and helpful, but should there be? I mean, when you've got one man holding so much of the world's wealth.
Well, I mean, it's a very good question, and if you're asking my personal opinion, I have views on that, and I'm sure your viewers will as well. And I think there's a very good case that that is just so much money that I mean, I guess it's not the money alone that one would want not an individual not to have. It's not that he can buy so much stuff, but money, of course, brings power. And once you've got $1 trillion, you've got a lot of power, and you can see him exercising that power. So I think there are questions for our society. I mean, of course, particularly society in the United States, where he's based, but I mean, global society. Do we want individuals, to have that much power? I think it's the power to concentrate on rather than the actual sum of money.
But there are monopolies commissions to ensure that companies don't gather that much power, although they don't seem to be working very well at the moment, particularly with SpaceX and all of the satellites that they're throwing up at the moment. But should there be, in the ideal world, is it possible, I don't know, to say that that concentration of wealth shouldn't be in so few hands? Because you're looking at the world's billionaires now, and they are getting richer and richer and richer, and hoarding more and more of the world's wealth.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I mean, the top, well, we always talk about the top 1% of the richest people, but actually now we're talking about the top 0.1% or 0.01%, and that's right. More and more wealth is being concentrated in a smaller and smaller section of society. Now, could we do something about that? I mean, it all depends on political will, and it depends on the law of the land. And at the moment, there's no laws stopping him. So in that sense, yes, he can have as much money as he wants. But I guess it'll be a question for the American people whether that's the system of laws they want, that people can just have a sort of unlimited amounts of wealth and therefore power, or whether we do need to, that is something we need to address. But I think it's Again, there's not a quick fix there.
But as a mathematician, right, which is a subject I was terrible at school.
Don't say that. I hate it when people say that.
I really was. But as a mathematician, it's just interesting for me to understand, just very quickly, because I know this is a bigger conversation, that if all of the money gets funneled to fewer and fewer people and leaves less of the money to the rest of us, how do we then spend the money they need us to spend to keep them rich?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's really an economics question rather than a maths question. So, I mean, I can have a go, but you might want an economist to put me right. But I mean, I think one thing that people would say, who might want to defend, the top 1%, is that yes, wealth is being concentrated, but if the total wealth is growing, even if individually our proportion of it is shrinking, we may still be getting richer. We're just getting richer slower than people right at the top end, would be, I guess, the counter argument.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm getting richer.
I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah. But again, when we look at the mathematics of it, and when you see the billions of people in this world with hundreds of millions with literally nothing, and then you've got these few people at the top who've got literally everything, and then there's the rest of us in between. I'm just wondering how that balance can it keep going? Can they keep growing at that rate? Because it's gone up since COVID. It's been this huge mushroom.
Yeah, I mean, it has. That's right. I mean, inequality it's growing at an extraordinary rate. Can it keep going like that? Well, I mean, I guess probably the answer is we'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean, that may be we may be in the midst of an unprecedented experiment where we will find out what happens if we just keep going down this line, and I'm reluctant to predict the consequences. I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, I personally don't think that this is a very healthy way to go.
Every revolution that was ever started was when the gap between the rich and the poor was nowhere near as big as it is now. So, I mean, like you said, it is a fascinating experiment, but with Elon Musk holding that much money and that much power. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Elvis there, who is Associate Professor of Mathematics at the University of Leeds and the author of Huge Numbers, which I think we can safely say is what we're talking about here. And what we'll be talking about at midnight as well. So I just want to know, what do you think that these mega rich people should do with their money? Do you have an issue, or do you mind people having that much cash? Claire Muldoon is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course in an hour's time it is Talk Back, so you get the opportunity to do just that. And I want to talk to you about the Elon Musk's stratospheric rise to trillionaire status, now the world's richest man. And this is because of his record-breaking stock market debut of his company SpaceX. And SpaceX has made an awful lot of money actually from government contracts. It's been given lots of government money in America to do that. But he's no doubt it has been incredibly successful. I'm not talking about taking away any of the success that Elon Musk has managed to find himself. He made his first waves in the tech industries in the late 1990s. And hasn't always topped the rich list, though. He was in 2020. This is how meteoric and stratospheric his rise has been. In 2020, so that's 6 years ago, he was only the 35th richest person in the world. So he was only at 35 6 years ago. So in 6 years, he has gone from $28 billion to $1.11 trillion. His wealth took off as the value of his two biggest companies, that is the Tesla and SpaceX, began to grow sharply. Musk holds large stakes in both businesses. So in his cash account, he probably doesn't have that. Well, I suspect he's probably got more than I've got. But, but what this means for him with these huge amounts of money is that he can then borrow against his stock and not pay tax on it. So he doesn't pay personal tax on it. And Brian has sent me this message saying, on the whole, I think you're a great broadcaster, thank you. But what's wrong with aspiration and ambition? Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. I would be delighted to be a couple of billion behind Elon, but would be delighted in being a trillion behind him. Imagine all the tax revenue he creates. Let's celebrate success when it's due. I have no problem with success. I do have a problem with so much of the world's wealth, and as Richard was just saying as well, power in the hands of one man. I do have a problem with that. I don't know how that issue is solved. And is it aspiration and ambition at the point you have $1 trillion and you want more and more and more? Is that something else? Is that not just ambition and aspiration, which I absolutely don't have a problem with. I don't even have a problem with him being that rich. I think I have a problem with somebody being that rich and not being philanthropic. I think I have a problem because I can't imagine it. Right? I'm just talking personally. I cannot imagine having that sort of money and not wanting to give most of it away. I mean, I would still make sure that I was a multi-millionaire, right? I have that aspiration too, Brian. I'd love to be a multi-millionaire. But I would also want to make sure that everybody I know and everybody I care about was well looked after. I don't know if Elon Musk does that. He may well do privately. But also then, if I had millions and billions and trillions more, I would probably want to get rid of it and make it do something. That would be my ambition. That would be my aspiration, would be to spend that sort of money making other people's lives a little bit better. If I could do that, then I would want to do that. And that would be a job in itself. I would work very hard to make sure the right people got the money, that I wasn't just sending off brown envelopes to people who said that they needed it, but I would do a lot of work to make sure that the right people got it. I mean, Bill Gates, not the nicest man in the world, but he has the Bill Gates Foundation. A lot of billionaires do give a lot of money away. But when you've got the richest man in the world being the least philanthropic, and don't forget as well that power that comes with that sort of money, and we've seen Elon Musk interfering in, trying to interfere in elections in Germany, backing people he thinks should be in charge, giving them loads and loads of money. Now, whether you agree with the people he agrees with or not one person should be able to affect democratic processes in other countries. I think that that is too much power. I'm also concerned with the number of satellites that Elon Musk is putting up, and it is a spying circuit around the world in the hands of one man, and that worries me. That's what concerns me more than the cash. Great, if you want to go and earn $1 million or $1 billion or $1 trillion, great, that is a fantastic thing, good for you. If that's your ambition, go for it. I have no issue with that at all. The issue I have is with the amount of power that brings with it, and the amount of influence that one man's way of thinking can have in countries and their democracies, and that is what does concern me. So I just wonder what you think should be done when so much money and power is in the hands of one person. As I was saying to Richard Elbers, is that you know, there are monopolies commissions to make sure that companies don't gain that much singular power. But with individuals, of course, there is no such thing. I don't even know if it would be possible to do. But it's just really a mindful thought for Midnight, really. What should be done with that sort of wealth? What should be done with that sort of the power that comes with that sort of wealth? And I'm certainly not jealous of it. I wouldn't know what to do with it. I absolutely wouldn't. I'd have to lie down and be completely paranoid and worried the whole time what I was going to do with that sort of money, how I was going to give it away. So I'm certainly not jealous of it. But or do I have any dampener on people's aspirations? Great. But why would you aspire to be the richest man in the world if you're going to sit on it? If you're not going to do anything with it, what is the aspiration? Just to go, look at me, I'm rich. I don't understand that. When you say ambition and aspiration, what is, from this point forward, what do you aspire to? What is the ambition with that money? Anyway, that's what I want to ask you at midnight. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Brian, thank you very much indeed for that message. Now, though, joining me now is Claire Muldoon, who's rich in every way apart from cash.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, yes.
You've got it in one.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not even 1 trillion, but there we go.
Not even 1 trillion anything in my house.
Not even one of those knots.
No, exactly. What do you think about this? The amount of wealth now that is globally is in the hands of 0.001% of the population of the world.
Well, I don't think that statistic's changed very much.
It used to be 1%.
But it's the amount of money that Elon Musk has amassed. Clearly, he's a very astute businessman. Clearly, he's a fantastic entrepreneur. And, you know, whilst I echo exactly what you said for your monologue at the top of your show there about, you know, no one would down anyone with entrepreneurial spirit like he has done, like he has. No one wants to see people fail. I think we should articulate our congratulations in some way for the amount of work that he's put in, because clearly he's a very hard-working man too. And I think to have that aspiration, I think is really helpful. And I wish this government would make it easier for SMEs in this country to grow, develop, and be more profitable than they actually are, or that they can be, due to the punitive tax burden that Rachel Reeves has put upon them in terms of national insurance contributions, minimum wage, etc., etc. All these massive costs for small and medium businesses is crippling them, and our pubs are closing one a day. So it'd be great if we've got an ambassador like Elon Musk to actually, be someone that people can look up to, and young people to look up to them. All we've got is Lord Sugar saying you're fired over a boardroom. Come on.
Yeah.
But does that really wash it? I don't think so. But the cool thing about Musk as well is he's actually manufacturing things. It's not just in the services. It's not just on X. It's not just on the
on
internet.
Amazon or something. Yeah,
exactly. I'm sure he's employing a lot of people. Would I want to be him? Not a jot. Would I even want to be associated with him in the sense that, either through family or whatever? No, because I think the security risk of having that much money will just alter you completely and make you live in an altogether parallel universe, because it's not right. And I would go as far as to say it's actually bordering on not just the amount of money that he has, but let's not be stupid about this. He doesn't have a bank account with all those zeros on it. This is an accumulation of wealth, of assets, of shares, more than it is cash, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But, I think we need people like
But it
Elon
gives
Musk.
him limitless access to
But
cash without
it does,
paying any tax on it,
and it
because
also
he
gives
borrows
him-
against his stock.
It also gives him limitless access to politicians. We've seen it with Restore in this country. We've seen it in Germany. We've seen it in other countries too.
Yeah.
And, the whole ethos of free speech, be the free speech ambassador, when X is a bit of a cesspit at the moment. It's just not the same as it was when it was Twitter.
But that is influence, isn't it? Bound by his
power and influence.
Yes, that to me is worrying, particularly with, like I said, with the satellites that he's throwing up around the world, that Starlink and the power that he now has to shut down nations, to shut in one man's hand, at the whim of one man. That is scary.
Yeah. But China's doing exactly the same.
Yeah.
So you could argue that Xi Jinping is doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but we know what China's trying to influence around the world, and they've been doing it for a very, 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 very long time.
Are you saying we don't know what Musk is trying to influence?
Well, no, we do know what he's trying to influence,
we do.
but he is more overt about it, and is very publicly throwing money behind people in democracies. And I know that China does a very similar thing, but at least there's more than one person involved. They might all have to agree with the one person, but it just worries me with that much money in that so few hands.
Well, he's got a lot of children as well, so he's got a lot of hands to reaching out to him.
Yeah. I mean, it is incredible. It is incredible. And like I said, all those satellites and things it really does concern me. I was reading an article the other day about how because they're so cheap now, he's developed this cheap way, brilliantly, or his scientists have, of these very cheap rockets that, in terms of rocket prices, being able to launch these equally cheap satellites that do an amazing job. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him in that regard, but it's just then that he has the eyes on the world.
But he's also got a really sharp focus in those eyes. I mean, his optics and his lens, to extend the metaphor even more, it seems to nail it every time.
In terms of technology, yeah, he's a savant, isn't he? He knows exactly where it is. Elon Musk has 14 known biological children.
I think is there 14 knots in a trillion or something like that? So maybe
maybe that's what he's going for.
That's what he was going for, I think. Every binary knot with that one at the beginning is for what each and every one of his children.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's just unfathomable.
It really is. And
There's only so much stuff you can have.
Yeah,
there's only so much you can eat in a day.
There's only so
many places you can go.
Yeah. I mean, apparently he's sold a lot of his properties, and he now lives in a couple of places in Texas. I think he's not, he's not extravagant either. But there you go. Right, so that's what we're talking about at midnight. Give us a call. Whilst taking nothing away, he's obviously very smart. And somebody said, why the hate against Seal? I don't have any hate against... Well, I do, actually. I don't like him as a human being. But that's not what I'm talking about. There's no hate. Can't be bothered to hate him. But it's just... It could be anybody. It would be. I'd be saying this if it was anybody. If it was Mother Teresa, I'd be saying it about anybody who had that much money, that much power, and that much influence in one person's hands. I don't care who it is. And if it was me, I'd be equally as horrible as the rest of them. So I just have an issue with that. But give me a call. If you don't, fine. That's great. 0344 499 1000. Quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk, and it is Petrie, and with me the fabulous Claire Muldoon. Claire, let's have a look at the Times this morning. Age checks on phones to access social media. They want to do face technology.
Well, I think this is actually getting rid of, to a certain extent, free speech. And I think it's more about digital tracking as well. They want us all now to input data that would tell the app or the internet how old we are by giving away our date of birth. And even I'm using an iPhone, I don't use Android. But even if there is an update, I have to prove I'm over 18. I haven't done it, and I don't want to do it because I'm thinking, well, I've got my mobile. It's my mobile phone. I know I'm over 18. I don't need to access anything. Why do I need to prove to my phone how old I am when they can see my history of ordering, my shopping, alcohol, groceries, everything else? So they've got all of that information there. I don't like it. I'm unsure about the legacy of this banning of under 16s on the internet of Starmer. I think it would be his only legacy of his premiership of nearly almost 2 years now. He's not managed to achieve anything really of note. And when Australia called this and when Australia implemented it, I thought, okay, this is going to be really interesting. It's going to be a really good move for it to, transfer itself over into us here in the UK. But I don't think enough, ironically, I don't think enough data is on it to see if it's been effective or not.
Well, they're saying it hasn't. 60% of young people in Australia have managed to circumvent it.
Which I think it'll be long before the figures reach that here as well. Remember, there was the whole thing about the VPN and for something else earlier, and it just didn't work. And I'm firmly of the camp that believes that parents should monitor what the child is watching. And if your child goes to bed, if they have a smartphone, you pay the bill. The phone is technically yours in the eyes of the law. Take the phone off them before they go to bed. But they shouldn't need to be on their phone.
Technically, and we've just been talking about the brilliance of some of these people who are, you know, mega wealthy because of their brilliance with technology, and employing brilliant people with technology, that it isn't beyond the wit of these giants, these tech giants, to actually come up with a solution that would work, but they don't. They are unwilling to do that.
But they will only be willing to do it, Petrie, when it starts to hit their pockets. Do you remember a few months ago we covered the story of the girl in America who said she was addicted to her phone from the age of 3 or 4,
and it was proven.
And she was actually taking Meta to court in America. And it was proven that she was addicted to it because of the way the phone presented, with all the algorithms, with all the ads and everything else. I mean, remember the Blackberries used to be called Crackberries?
Yeah. Because
people were addicted to them like crack cocaine. And it's so sad. When I use public transport a lot, and I see mums with buggies and their child is sitting in the buggy with a phone.
I know.
And it's so sad. Talk to your child, for heaven's sake. Don't just use a piece of technology as a soother, as a dummy, as some form of security, as some form of comfort for the child, because it's not. It rots brains, it rots relationships, it rots communication, it rots families.
But interestingly,
rots life.
The numbers of parents who want this are huge percentage-wise, and yet, as you said, they are the ones that hold the power.
Yeah.
But is that negligence then? Is that just passing the buck or does it give them?
I think
a strength.
Agency.
It gives them strength to be able to say, well, you know, the law says you can't do it.
It gives them agency in a sense that, yes, they can hide behind the law. But the reason every parent wants that is because it's no matter which way you frame that question and ask a parent it, it'd be really difficult for a parent to turn around and say, no, I think they should have access to it. Because it's not PC, if you want, actually, to say that now, because everyone is jumping on the bandwagon. Everyone is saying, I mean, we saw that ridiculous MP talking to her 6-year-old child. Did you see that? The video, the irony was she put the video up on YouTube.
Yeah.
She was having a discussion with her child to tell her child that she won't be able to go onto YouTube now. And the child had practically a full-on meltdown. She was stroppy. I thought, this is just not real. I can't believe this is happening.
The parents have lost control then, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, they've lost control, but they also treat their children like friends, and you can't do that.
I agree with that.
You need to parent. And unfortunately, this government, to a certain degree, has infantilized an awful lot of parents, because, you know, you don't have to give your kids breakfast. We'll give them breakfast in school. You don't have to potty train your child before starting nursery. We'll do that for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to brush your teeth. We'll get that toothbrushing done for you. What else are they going to do now? They're going to monitor what children can access after spending 20 odd years with moving away from blackboards onto whiteboards, moving away from actual books and jotters and encyclopedias to Google, to the internet, to study help.
And a lot of their homework will be on these apps as well.
BBC One Bite Size was great for GCSE revision. A lot of resources are online that children will need to access.
That's very true.
And children sitting their GCSEs, they sit them at 16. What's going to happen when they're 16? Are they going to go, oh, wow, what's porn? How do you spell that? Oh, that's something I've never seen before. And then they'll just be completely bowled over with everything else that's on the internet when they turn age 16. No, it needs to be, you need to teach children ways, equip them with the ability to tease out the real pathway forward for them to enrich their lives with the internet. Well, this is a Pandora box. We cannot put this back. Tim, what was his name who made the World Wide Web? It's a question in Trivial Pursuit. Tim
Berners-Lee?
Tim Berners-Lee, okay, created the World Wide Web. And remember, everyone had .com domain and everything else. And that, this is really exciting. Google, wow, what a search engine. What's Google? Oh, you can ask it anything. Well, Grok is a simplified, bastardized version of that for
But we've been lucky because we've grown up with it, as you're saying. That it was never just dumped on us, right? The world that it is now.
Yeah.
We first, had the dial-up and, all of those things.
Remember dial-up?
Yeah, I do remember. I can still remember the noise.
The noise?
And so we've sort of, when it's difficult to keep up with it, but the changes have been there. Now, as a young person, you're in this world and you haven't had the opportunity to grow with it, if you like we have.
But
so
no
it's much harder for them.
I would even argue that no child needs a smartphone. What's the primary reason for your child to have a phone at the very beginning?
Is to get in touch with you.
Just to get in touch with them. That was it. That was it.
But we were lucky. I was lucky because my boy just had dumb phones, right? And, that was...
Mine were the same. And the schools that my kids went to, they weren't allowed mobile phones even, which was even better.
Yeah. But they would, when my boy started going on buses and things like that, I wanted him to have a phone because often he would get on the wrong bus or get lost or something and need to be collected. But all of those things. But other than that, they didn't need it.
They didn't need
them.
They didn't need them.
They've got them, and that is a given now. Listen, before we move on, there's also on the top of the Times this horrendous story, and here we go again. Authorities missed up to 8 chances to save abused baby's life. I am so tired of hearing, all of these authorities that have failed to do their jobs. We had that with Novak, we've had that with the Southport killer, we've had that. All these opportunities that were apparently there, missed. And this one again.
Calaconi.
Yeah.
Now, this one, I think, because this tragic child was given to a gay couple and the child was presented at hospital with severe bruising and clear signs of sexual abuse. Now, were the authorities too frightened to take anything forward for fear of being called homophobic? That is an answer. That is an answer, and it's a question that I think we have to ask and get the answer for. Because if it was DEI that prevented this child from being removed as a safeguarding issue to save this child's life because some doctor or some social worker didn't want to be branded homophobe, then they really have to be called to court. Because I'll tell you, this echoes in terms of abuse, although Baby P's was physical abuse. You can never, ever, ever legislate against anything like this happening, unfortunately.
No.
Because there's evil out there, Petrie, and it goes unnoticed. And Baby P, don't forget, came out of lockdown. So a lot of that was hidden, remember?
Yeah, I do. Look, the grandmother, the biological grandmother of this little baby, Preston, has questioned whether social workers were too frightened of being accused of homophobia to properly scrutinise the behaviour of these men, and there may have been as many as 8 missed opportunities for authorities to intervene. I mean, I remember one time when my boy was little, and the toddlers, they're drunk. So he at one point, toddling along, fell over, bashed his head. Right on his head, and came up with a really big lump. Anyway, I ended up taking him to A&E, and I was not allowed to be with him. They said, we're going to take him away and just do some tests on him, blah, blah, blah. And then people came in and were questioning me and said, well, how did this happen? And I explained how it happened, and then they went away. And then another set of people came in to ask me, when I was saying, look, can I just go and be with my boy? And they said, no, just wait. And I hadn't even clicked. I didn't twig until the third set of people came in to ask me what had happened, that I told the same story. I thought, oh, this is a social services thing. They're checking to see if I haven't beaten him. Now it was clearly a toddler that had fallen over and bashed his head. So I question how, if that happened to me, and we're talking 26 years ago, why didn't it happen here? So
Well,
I just don't understand that, because I didn't realise, but I was being questioned and questioned and questioned. And then obviously they realised I was fine and let me go with him. But
yeah, but I remember when I took one of mine up to A&E to Chell West, and one of the first questions was, does the child have a social worker? That was
wow.
Norma, that was just the automatic question to ask any parent or carer that came in with a child. Now, clearly, as a child that was adopted, this child would have had a social worker. And the amount of checks that you would have to go through in the adoption process
is huge.
I mean, I think everything has to be stripped back to when one of the chaps, I think it was a single application for adoption. I think it has to go right back to there. To the initial application.
Yeah, I mean,
follow the whole thing.
Yeah.
Something's been missed.
Something has been missed
somehow.
Yeah, and this poor little baby
was one
paid
of them
the price.
a teacher as well?
Yeah,
I mean, there were DBS checks as well. I mean, what, did he save up all his sexual proclivities until he got his DBS check and then started to be a paedophile?
That's the problem with those checks,
That's the problem
isn't
with
it?
the DBS. Exactly. That's why I'm bringing it
Yeah,
up.
that's the problem with them. They're only good on the day.
And how many other children has he been
abusing?
Well, not only abused, but in front of, in contact with.
It's another horrific case where there's been a massive failure. There's got to be a root and branch look at all of these authorities.
And how must the biological family feel?
Yeah.
If that child was taken off them for adoption, or maybe the child was given up, and they would have thought, my goodness me, we're worse than them.
I know. Just awful. Horrible, horrible story. Right, a quick break, Claire, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here, and with me is Claire Muldoon to go through the papers. The Telegraph, Claire, the Prince and Princess of Wales depart the Garter Day ceremony yesterday. The Princess wore a pale yellow coat dress, and Prince William, they're looking quite grey-bearded, but very handsome, actually. Suits him, doesn't it?
The feathered plume.
With his feathered plume. Yeah, a nice picture of them both there. Churchill's biographer rejects starvation lies. A biographer of Winston Churchill has accused the National Portrait Gallery of barefaced lies over its claim that the wartime Prime Minister deliberately starved Indians. Lord Roberts of Belgravia wrote to the gallery's board yesterday to demand an explanation after the Telegraph exposed its claims that Churchill willfully inflicted mass starvation on India during the Bengal famine of 1943.
Because you see that there's some actually, there's some really nice pictures actually in it.
I
In
mean,
the,
Churchill himself was a great artist, actually.
Yeah,
Watercolor
yeah.
artist.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
actually. I like some of his stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it's. I suppose when you've got the arts getting involved in this way, it can be a bit.
Well, it's very revisionist, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, talk about rewriting history. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, the letter was signed by more than 50 peers, including Churchill's grandson,
Lord Soames.
Nick Soames. I love Nick Soames. He's actually he works with my sister-in-law, and I interviewed him in Bosnia, and he's very sweet, and he used to listen to me on lots of different radio stations and would phone in. He would literally just phone in and say, "Nick here, Nick Soames," and have a little chat over the phone. He's such a sweet man, a giant behemoth of a man.
He's huge, isn't he?
Absolutely massive. And I used to have to stand on a box to interview him to get the eye line right, because otherwise he would look like he was looking down on me. But a really terrifically nice guy, very sweet. The Daily Mail, 8 mischances to save the baby Preston from evil adoptive fathers, and you can't help thinking that this is going to really set the gay community back as well. They're going to be thinking of, we wanted to adopt, and now it's going to be so much harder. And of course, these are just 2 evil men, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And the whole community shouldn't be being targeted because of it. But that little baby, what a sweetheart. But again, these bodies, these places that are supposed to protect us, are just doing such a woefully bad job.
Yeah.
The Guardian, Russia link as 2 guilty of Starmer arson attack. 2 men found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks on property connected to Keir Starmer appear to have operated under instruction from online handler with links to Russia.
Isn't this just amazing? Because there were Ukrainian lads. They were.
Yes.
And there was so much tittle tattle in Westminster and beyond that these were rent boys or something like that, and they were alleged, and all of this nonsense, and all the spiralling whispers just blew out of all proportion. When of course it was nothing like that at all. The Financial Times and the BBC suggested the attacks had been coordinated through Telegram messages, funnily enough, from an account with links to a network based in Russia.
Petrie Hosken, 35.
It's not the Chinese infiltrating the Labour Party, it's those pesky Ruskies.
Yeah. Now, there were 2 Ukrainians and 1 Romanian were found guilty at the Old Bailey yesterday, and Petrie Hosken, at 35, was cleared of the same charge.
But I mean, nonetheless, it's an awful thing to have happened, to have your house burned.
And your cars as well.
And your cars, and it's awful.
It is awful. It is awful. Right, the Strait will open now. Iran
Isn't
deal
that great news? Is it the 29th time we've heard this?
Yeah, well, this is what I'm going, what? Yeah, OK. Apparently it will be completely open from Friday. So fingers crossed, let's hope.
Yeah, again.
The deal, and it isn't a deal. It isn't a peace deal. It's a memorandum of understanding that Israel is trying to disrupt. So let's wait and see. Let's hope it's going to work. But yeah, let's wait and see. The Sun newspaper, again, going with the tragedy of adopted Preston, murdered by twisted dad and failed by the system. The Independent, arson attack on Starmer linked to Russia. I'm amazed they've gone so big on that, but that's their full front page, and the same with the Eye, which is not entirely surprising.
Yeah.
Plot to burn down Starmer's home linked to Russian mastermind. Oh, and then the supermarket dupes that taste as good as the big brands. Are you a dupe person?
To a certain extent, I am. But the one thing there they've got Heinz ketchup, and I think that's the M&S one.
Yeah.
The M&S one is delicious. And that's the one that we use here.
Thank you. I use it
Yeah.
because I wanted to stop buying American goods. Heinz has always been the big issue for me because I'm a big Heinz fan, right? Heinz tomato soup can't be beaten.
Heinz salad cream.
It can't be beaten, right? So, and I thought that tomato ketchup was the same, but I read an article saying that the M&S ketchup was as good. I prefer it.
It's richer.
It's more expensive for the size of the bottle, but it is better.
I didn't think it was more expensive, but it's richer. It's
delicious.
Just thicker.
Yeah.
Because Heinz is really watery and ugh.
Yeah,
But,
I completely agree. M&S is good.
No dupes, perfume or creams or anything like that. I just use branded ones. I don't dupe.
You don't dupe? I do dupe.
Do you dupe?
I do. Well, I do both.
Do you?
Yeah, I do dupe. There's a perfume company that does dupes.
Oh yes,
and they're actually really good.
Yeah.
They are actually really good. But what you're paying for is a very plain bottle and a very, you're not paying for some Keira Knightley to do the advertising.
The water used in some of those dupey perfumes, though, do they not aggravate your skin?
No, I've never had a problem.
Okay.
I think some people do, but I think they probably have problems with the real thing as well.
I think I'm just so sensitive.
Oh, flower, little flower. But no, I like a dupe. These big companies. I think that some of it is a bit of smoke and mirrors, and it's what we're used to, isn't it? It's that you want to be. You stick with what you know. Right, the Metro PM, my ban will keep our kids safe. Yeah. Well, which of course he isn't, is he?
It's just, I mean, it's ill thought out, rushed out, and, I think it's a good thing. He's trying to do a good thing here.
Yeah,
but he's just going about it in completely the wrong way.
It is, I do worry that it's not going to hold unless the tech companies step in behind and do something which they don't want to do.
You're right. But if they can build the algorithms to,
of course they can.
For what surely they can put the algorithms in reverse.
Of course they can.
And stop allowing children to access.
Absolutely, they can.
Horrible things. And if that means the closure of OnlyFans accounts, well, good. If that means a downturn in porn, well, great. And if that means that people are actually becoming more civil, because I think we're such a disparate, angry country.
Oh, it is
so bad. We're such a disparate, angry world.
Yeah, I agree.
That I think platforms that are giving people the ability to voice their opinion, often faceless, it just drives it all.
Yeah.
And I just wish we would all have a ban from the internet for a while. That'd be lovely.
I actually do. I don't disagree with you, actually, although I do need it quite a lot for research and for this programme in the mornings.
I know, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I have to ban myself from my phone.
You would have done exactly the same as me. Remember, we used to have to go into the library for research and use microfiche?
Yeah, absolutely.
They
were the
amount
days.
of time, weren't they?
Yeah. They were pretty good. Actually, and we used to do newspaper clippings as well. When I was a junior reporter, it's a clip. That was your job. You had to go through the papers of the day and clip the newspapers and put them in. That was your first job of the day. And if you had to do some deep research, straight down to the library, which was a way of getting out of the newsroom, going for a fag, and having a look through microfilm.
And then we have to go through all the newspapers and pick out the same stories and look at the way they were reported and see who had the best angle, who's got the best byline. Oh, they got a byline. Oh, why did they get it? It was just brilliant.
It was brilliant. And also in the newsroom, there'd always be a fax machine.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Spewing out, straight into a bin, spewing out all the stories that were being sent from various wires.
And remember that paper, the fax paper?
Oh, yeah.
It was like that shiny toilet paper you had.
It really was. Yeah, but now, of course, it is all changed. Let's take a very quick break. We'll come back to the Mirror after that.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it's Petrie, and with me is Claire Muldoon. The Daily Mirror, I cannot believe this is 10 years ago. That was the murder of Joe Cox. I was working at the BBC World Service, just about to present World Have Your Say, which is 35 million listeners around the globe. And just before I went in to present a programme on gun laws, the story broke about Joe Cox, and we had to throw the whole programme out and start again and do the Joe. There was my first time presenting that programme as well, with such a big audience. It was absolutely horrifying, and the news as it came in as well, just awful. This is 2016. Her murder shocked us all. 5 years later, another MP fell victim to extremism, and of course that's David Amos. As hate grows daily, their shattered families unite to a call to a return for decency and civility. We need to talk. And MPs really are in danger now, aren't they? Because there is so much anger towards and hatred towards them.
It's palpable.
Yeah. It's scary.
You know, it used to be in the days gone by, the days of yore, John Prescott got a leg chucked at him.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, Farage got the milkshake chucked at him too. But that was really as far as it went. It's so visceral now. It's so filled with hate and anger. It's just awful. I can't believe it's 10 years. In a way, it seems as if it's more. But in a way, it seems as a lot less.
Yeah, I'm
glad the Mirror have led with that.
Yeah,
today.
so am I actually. But it is time for me is just a really strange. I always think things were much more recent than they were. But 10 years ago, and like I said, I remember exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing at the time that story broke in the newsroom. And I remember the World Service. I mean, it literally is a huge office. It's got PM in it and all the other different programmes as well in the newsroom. And it was just like this shock went through this enormous newsroom as everybody was trying to figure out exactly what had happened and why it had happened. And there was no,
rhyme nor reason.
No rhyme nor reason at all. But in their name, they're saying that it's time we need to talk about the state of this country. And I completely agree with that. Let's the Daily Express. I know you and I differ on this story completely.
Yeah.
Dame Esther's Delight, as Labour MP, says she will reintroduce the assisted dying bill. It ran out of time and needs to be in the Lords and needs to be reintroduced. Our hope has been restored, they're saying. Legalise assisted dying. Vote for the Leadbeater bill. So they're hoping that will be reintroduced and rediscussed, and we'll see what happens then. The Daily Star. The Daily Star.
Never fails.
Never fails. England's WAGs have set up base 1,400 miles from the Three Lions as the players are too busy to see them between games.
Good.
Who cares? Clean sheets.
Exactly.
I don't quite.
But the only paper to have picked this up in the front pages is the Pusher arrest.
Oh no, it was a nib on the Times or Telegraph as well. This was an extraordinary story.
Extraordinary.
Is this
story.
6 years now?
I can't remember. It's over Putney Bridge and Putters.
Yeah.
I just.
I think it's 6 years.
That is just mad. Even now, seeing the footage of that again, how the bus driver had the wit to, move completely out of the way for that woman. It was just unbelievable.
It was this is the Putney Bridge passer, which is going over Putney Bridge. She was walking to the south. He was running in the other direction, and he just literally pushed her out of his way, and she fell in front of a bus. And the bus driver was heralded as a hero because he saw her and swerved to miss her. Otherwise, she would have died. And the police have been trying to find this person for, I think it's 9 years. And they have arrested somebody now, so we've got to be careful. But the footage of the incident appeared to show the runner pushing a 33-year-old into the path of a bus. The Telegraph understands that the suspect is a decorated army captain who works
with links
now
to the royal family.
As a director at a private bank. So I don't know how, after so many years, they have made this arrest, but I guess somebody must have come forward. But like we said, there's an arrest been made. But I mean, I remember that at the time, thinking that is absolutely awful.
Bonkers.
Yeah, just to obviously, he was doing it, timing himself or something.
But what a mad random attack.
Yeah, and then just to run on. And the image of her literally falling
and not being found.
Yeah, and not being found for so long. And they put out CCTV, didn't they, from the bus? Directly from the bus that was recording at the time. But that bus driver saved her life that day. Absolutely miraculous that he managed to swerve, because she was that far away from the wheels. Oh, God, awful. Right, I want to just have a look at a couple of your stories, which I appear to have lost. No, they're here. One of them I absolutely loved, and I will.
The one in the sun.
Yeah, but the Keir Starmer is copying Andy's casual look.
This is the wonderful Tim Stanley writing for the Telegraph. He's like, Labour's social media ban promo video did profound harm to one's eyes by showing the PM in a T-shirt and tracksuit. What Tim Stanley is saying here is that Keir Starmer is attempting to adopt the more laid-back Andy Burnham look of the
It
white
just doesn't
T-shirt
suit him.
It does, but what would suit Keir Starmer apart from P60? I think he would wear that one well, and I wish he would get one.
Yeah.
But it's funny how he's so knee-jerky reactionary, isn't he? He would just do anything if he thought it would gain him a vote.
It's so sad. But it'd be like seeing my late father, who in jeans. I mean, it would. I would have fainted. I mean, every day my father wore a jacket, and either if it was a casual day, he would wear a shirt but no tie. But most of the time he wore a tie with a tie pin. And he was always the only time I ever saw him casual, he was a runner. He used to run 6 miles a day every single day, and you'd see him in his running shorts and stuff. But the rest of the time he would always be in a not so much a suit but a jacket and slacks. But the idea of him being in trying to be casual, I mean, that's what I think of with Keir Starmer. Is it just doesn't suit you, man. It just
you
don't
wouldn't
do
see
it.
Donald Trump like that, would you?
No, well, apart from his golfing
sweatpants
outfit, you never see him.
But that's dressing appropriately for what you're doing.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to be running the country. I don't want to see him in a T-shirt and a slack and a jumper.
No, and Boris Johnson always looked like he'd wandered into a local thrift shop and thrown something on, it was probably very expensive, but it always looked like he needed an iron.
And his hair, his hair needed an iron.
Yeah, but I used to see him step out of lifts and ruffle up his hair before he got out of the lift. That was always very put on. And the other story, I love this. Talk me through it. I think
This is hilarious. I hope you have got the images, because it's the Sun newspaper. Breaking My Art, and that's a throw of Jesus and the Virgin Mary statues left looking like goth rock band after amateur artist bungles restoration. Now, honest to God, they look horrific.
It is absolutely.
The Virgin Mary has got her lips. It's like one line of red lipstick, but the eyes, it's the eyes.
It's the eyeliner.
The alabaster plaster, and with the eyes, her eyes look as if she's on some form of drugs because they're popping out of her head. She's got slugs for eyebrows that a child at nursery might have drawn on her. And Jesus looks as if Jesus is a bit confused about his sexuality at the moment.
He really does.
My goodness me. I mean, it's just... Locals have slammed the work, Petrie, and called the horrific touch-ups disrespectful and amateurish at best.
At best. But
it's just...
I was saying to Gabriella, do you remember the case? I think it was in Italy. There was a spat in Spain, where there's this little old lady who was part of the church, and there was this beautiful but very old sort of carving of JC, and
it's a JC now, is it?
JC, and she decided off her own bat that she was going to repair this. Do you remember? And she painted a face on it that looked a bit like a monkey. Do you remember?
Yes, I do remember that.
Oh my goodness! And she absolutely destroyed it, and it was worth, it was priceless. It was this priceless old piece of art in this tiny little church in Spain.
It happened in Borja in Spain. It is here because they've mentioned it as a footnote.
Oh, did they mention it
in this article?
Yeah. And she just took it upon herself to do that, and thought that it would be the right thing.
Cecilia Gimenez tried to restore a faded 1930s
that's right.
Ecce Homo fresco in 2012.
Yeah.
My goodness me. She turned the sombre Jesus into the now internet famous monkey Christ.
Yes, that was it. He looked like a monkey. Absolutely. These people just leave it. It's not as easy as it looks, people. It's not as easy as it looks. Claire, you always make this hour easy for me, though, so thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I love it.
For joining me, and we'll see you very, very soon. Claire Muldoon. They're going through the papers for tomorrow. Right, coming up, it's just you and me. And if you were a trillionaire, what would you do with the money?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello Hello, good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next hour, and this is your Talkback Hour. And I've just been looking, you caught me actually just reading some more of it, ranking the world's billionaires by wealth and altruism. This is, of course, because that Elon Musk is now the world's richest man with a wealth that exceeds $1 trillion. He's the richest person on the planet by far, by a long way. He has completely leapfrogged everybody else. And in 2020, just 6 years ago, he was ranked 35th. So in 6 years, he has become the world's richest man by a long, long way. He also ranks amongst the least philanthropic billionaires. Musk has transferred 8.5 billion of Tesla stock into his charitable foundations. That's 1% of his net worth, but nearly all of it is still sitting there idle. So he has transferred money, but it's not been spent charitably. Only an estimated 500 million, or 0.06%, 0.06% of Musk's vast fortune has ever been dispersed to those in need. And when you look at other billionaires like Warren Buffett, who's donated more than half of his Berkshire Hathaway stock so far, and Bill Gates, who has moved alongside his ex-wife Melinda French Gates more than 60 billion into the Gates Foundation. This article here, it's very interesting, asks what if they hadn't done that? How rich would they be? So if they hadn't given any of their money away, in the same way that Musk hasn't really given any of his money away, that he would still hold the #1 spot, but he loses serious ground to his more charitable contemporaries. Gates has given away an estimated 731 million shares of Microsoft. If he had instead held onto that stock, which has soared nearly sevenfold since the Gates Foundation launched in 2000, if he kept all of his cash donations for himself, he would be 4 times richer than he is today and would rank as the world's second richest person instead of 19th. Buffett would similarly leap to the top 5 from 9 to 3 if he never parted with any of his shares, which have risen 700% since he started donating major blocks of them in 2006. And I've got a list here of America's top 25 philanthropists, and why Musk, Page and Ellison aren't even on the list. So it's fascinating to see how some people will donate an awful lot of their money and other people just don't, just hold on to it. Warren Buffett is one of the most generous. His net worth is 146 billion, and he's given away 68.3 billion. He plans to give up 99% of his entire wealth. That is the plan. Bill Gates has given away 52.6 billion plus 4.9 billion. I don't know what that's for. Giving his percentage of his net worth is 28% of his net worth he's given away. So he could give away a bit more. Warren Buffett, by the way, is 32%. So just looking at some of these philanthropic behaviours, Mackenzie Scott gave away more than anyone else on earth, and the most in 1 year since Forbes started tracking the top givers. Mackenzie Scott was married to, was it Bezos? It was somebody like that. Mackenzie Scott, yes, it was Bezos. Mackenzie Scott's 26 billion giving sprint in 7 years, including a record 7.2 billion last year, makes her the biggest philanthropist of all time. She gave more in 2025 than Musk, Page and Ellison and her ex-husband Bezos have in their lifetimes combined. So she got an awful lot of money from Bezos and she's given away an enormous amount of that, 46% of her net worth. Michael Bloomberg, I used to work for him, boo, gave away 19% of his wealth. George Soros, 76% of his worth. He's given away 24 billion lifetime of giving, and his net worth is 7.5 billion. Marilyn Simmons and family have given away 24% of their net worth, and on it goes. Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Khan, they've given away 3% of their net worth, just 3% of that. Sergey Brin has given away he's a Google co-founder, if you're not sure who he was, given away 2%. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez Bezos have given away 2%. Phil and Penny Knight, 12%. That's the Nike co-founder. 29% is Dustin Moskovitz and Kari Tuna. Don't know what they did, but anyway. So yeah, there's an awful lot of people who really haven't given away very much at all, and don't plan to. But there are others who have been absolutely fantastic and given away loads and loads of their money. What does that make you think of when you think of somebody like Musk, who's got all of that money, but doesn't think to sort of donate some of it or much of it? And maybe you think that that's absolutely fine. That's what he should do. It's his money. I've got a message down here I just wanted to read. Joel says, he's actually doing the most philanthropic thing in history of the planet by endeavouring to get to Mars and make humans a bi-planetary race. You need to think bigger and be more mindful, with a laughing face. Yeah. Is that for himself, though? I mean, this is the thing, is that giving stuff away, being truly philanthropic, is to give things away without having some return. Or, I think that Mackenzie Scott kept it pretty quiet. She didn't want the fanfare. She didn't attach any strings to it. She just gave this money away. And she's obviously still very wealthy. And nobody's suggesting she shouldn't be still very wealthy. But what are you going to do with all that money? That's the question that I have. Once you've, bought your yacht and your car, and your 3 spare cars, and paid for everybody to have a nice life, and you've got houses wherever you want them, which would be annoying, frankly, but what do you do with it then? That's what I don't understand, I think, is what's the point in having millions or billions in a bank account, or just making more money from that money? I mean, if I won $1 million, I would never have to work again. And I wouldn't work again, probably. It'd just be, I wouldn't need to add to that. I don't understand. I don't get why people want that much money, or what they could possibly achieve by having it, if they're not going to give it away, if they're not going to be philanthropic. I'm just saying, I don't understand it. If you can explain it to me, then that's brilliant, because I'd like you to try, because I don't get it. I never understood that sort of drive for money. I don't think money, as long as you've got enough, why do you need more? And what's that about? And there's no doubt about it, in Musk's world, it means something to him. It's a status symbol to him. It's a, ego, maybe, to go, I'm the world's richest man. But then what? Once everybody knows that, what do you do with it then? So it just confuses me that this drive to have more and more and more and more money, just to keep adding to your billions, to keep, For what? For what reason? You've got more money than you can ever spend in your lifetime, in several lifetimes. Then what is the point in having more and more and more? I don't get it. Except for the power that it comes with, then there is no sense to it at all. And that's actually what I object to. I don't have a problem with aspiration. I don't have a problem. I wouldn't seriously, genuinely have no aspiration to have that sort of money. But what do you, I don't know. I don't get it. It confuses me that people would want that sort of life, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. But if you can explain it, give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Right, joining me now to have a chat about this is Grace in London. And I think I can guess where you're going to go with this, Grace.
Oh, where do you think I'm going to go with it?
I think you're with me, and you'd think that you should help people with this sort of money.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that springs to my mind whilst you're talking about not understanding why Elon Musk would want more and more and more and more and more and more is that this is not a justification for what he's doing, but those of us on the autistic spectrum, we collect things. I don't have any collections in particular at the moment, but when I was a child, I did. And a lot of people who are on the autistic spectrum like to collect train sets, or my dad collects maps. We have this kind of desire to just gather up a particular thing, and it seems that for Musk it might be
money.
Yeah. But that's no justification, obviously. He said on a previous occasion that he agrees with the teachings of Jesus, but Jesus said not to store up your treasures on earth, and Jesus told us again and again to help the poor. And it's really exciting, actually, that we can make an impact for people who are really disadvantaged. If you do give to the poor, you don't kind of buy your way into heaven. That's not how it works. But if you do choose to follow Jesus, actually, then you do have even more of a desire. And I find it's really exciting. Like, we don't have anywhere near as much money as Elon Musk does, and yet we can change at least one life, for example, if we sponsor a child. Or we could, provide a remarkable amount of food for someone in our world who's literally starving because of how much impact each pound makes when you give it to the poorest people. So Elon Musk said a while ago that he would end world hunger, and he could have actually done that with quite a small share of his wealth, because it goes so much further when you give it to the poorest places. And it seems to me so disappointing that he decided he didn't want to do that. Instead, he went and made things worse for the world's poorest people by cutting
USAID. Yeah.
And lying about USAID programs. He came out with straight lies. At one point, he had to admit that he'd made some mistakes, but there weren't any kind of consequences for him or anything like that, or reverberations or undoing of what he'd done. So it's frustrating. I know a lot of people have weird conspiracy theories about Bill Gates, but I appreciate that he is trying to resolve various diseases affecting people in our world, like malaria. I think that's a great thing to do, and so much more exciting at the end of the day than just piling up money. And I don't think Elon Musk is very happy. There was an occasion a little while ago where he just tweeted something along the lines of, whoever said money doesn't make you happy knew what they were talking about, with this sad emoji next to it. And I felt sad for him, but he's clearly not actually finding real deep joy in the way that he's going about life.
Well, I don't know how much money is enough money. I mean, I always think, well, as long as I've got enough to pay my bills and have a bit of a nice, couple of dogs and my indulgences, then that's enough money for me. And I've never thought, if I worked hard, I could have more and more and more cash. It's never been a driver for me. Never. I've never been driven by money, and maybe that's because I'm comfortable, right? But I just don't understand this need. I mean, like you said, maybe that's just his the way his brain works, that he just wants to keep gathering money. But what concerns me is the power that goes with.
I was just about to say that.
Money. Yeah.
Yeah. And perhaps it's all the more the case for people like those of us who are socially awkward or were bullied growing up, that he's now feeling, well, I've
protected.
got some fans, I've got some people around me who will celebrate me. And so the power that he can accumulate through his money is particularly appealing to him. And it's such a shame, because there's so much good that he could be doing. But like I say, each of us, even though we've got nothing compared to him, most of us got enough to make a bit of a difference for someone. So I like to think positively about how we can make a bit of an impact. But it's frustrating when one sees people say about Elon Musk, well, he's really clever and he works really hard, because if it were that simple, then everyone would,
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are clever and work really hard.
Exactly,
You also got to be extremely lucky, and a lot of his money has come from government contracts as well. We know that when he was working in Doge or running Doge or whatever that was, that he just came off as being really mean and not a deeply nice person, actually, reveling in getting people sacked and cutting people and then going, oh no, we made a mistake because actually we need more people. So all of these things, but he seemed to be reveling in that role of being the Grim Reaper. I just feel that no one should have that much power.
Quite literally, because it's forecast that tens of millions of people are going to die because of the cuts that he made to aid, in addition to people losing their jobs, and to say, oh, well, people, like Musk, they work really hard, when he's stopping some people from working by firing them. It's really grim. And I think the way that some people really want to put him on a pedestal and idolise him is quite concerning, because...
what are they idolising? Exactly what is it about? I mean, okay, so he has an ability to make money. He has an ability to spot talent. That's what his talent is, in spotting talent. He spotted, Tesla, but he didn't invent anything. And he spotted, with SpaceX as well. That he's got the right talent behind him. That is his talent. Is finding people to make money for him. Yeah,
and I don't want to go to Mars. All this discussion.
We're not going to end up going to Mars. This is just ridiculous. Certainly not in his lifetime.
Like our world actually has so much beauty. Nature is so remarkable. There's so much that's interdependent and interconnected, such that the biological world around us is really remarkable in ways that we don't realise until we look down at the molecular level of things. And to try and imagine that we'd be happy on this cold, empty, barren planet that's got nothing to enjoy, it seems a miserable aim to have. I think we should be trying to keep the planet we've got.
Yeah, a miserable aim. I think that's very well said. Grace, thank you very much indeed. Right, we bandy these numbers around. I'm just going to leave you to think about this when we go into a break. So think of it as a comparison. 1 million seconds is 11.5 days. So that's £1 million. 1 million seconds is 11.5 days. 1 billion seconds amounts to more than 31 years. So the difference between 1 million and 1 billion is that huge. Now, the difference between 1 billion and 1 trillion, okay, so we've gone from 31 years for 1 billion seconds to 1 trillion seconds being 31,689 years.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So that is the difference. 11.5 days for 1 million, 31 years for 1 billion, and nearly 32,000 years for 1 trillion. Well, earlier I was talking to the mathematics professor and author Richard Elwes, and I asked him about the meaning of these numbers.
I think these numbers do blur a little bit, so it's worth having a go at trying to bring some sense to it. I think 1 million is probably a number which people have got some sort of grasp of. Obviously, $1 million or £1 million, it's a lot of money, but it's maybe not an unimaginably large amount of money. So maybe one way of thinking about 1 trillion is that it's 1 million. So you're a millionaire 1 million times over if you've got $1 trillion. That's maybe one way of thinking about it. Another way, I was trying to come up with some interesting ideas, and one statistic which might be fun is that there have been approximately 100 billion people who've ever lived. So Elon Musk could afford to send every single person who's ever lived $10. I thought that
wow, ever lived? Every single person's
yeah,
ever
not
lived.
just
Just now.
If we limit to people who are alive now, there's just under 10 billion people, so he could send everyone in the world $100. But if we broaden out to everyone who's ever lived, he could send them about $10 each. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is extraordinary wealth, but is he really that rich? In the terms of, you know, of what I would consider rich in his bank account, for example.
Well, I think he is, by the standards of any individual, he is incredibly rich. I think that's right. But when you're dealing with sums of money, or indeed just numbers more generally, things are always relative. So if you measure Elon Musk against any other individual person, even the second richest person in the world, he's extremely, extremely wealthy compared to any other person. But for example, if UK GDP was said to be it was said to be $1 trillion or pounds, there would be gloom across the country because our national GDP needs to be much higher than that. So in that sense, $1 trillion would be a small quantity of money if you're measuring it on that sort of scale. So everything's relative, but from the point of view of an individual, yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it. He is just incredibly, incredibly rich.
What sort of things could he afford to do, apart from giving us all, a couple of quid each? What sort of things could he do? I mean, saw somebody today suggest, or the other day suggest, that he could sort out world poverty, but only for a year with $1 trillion. So what other things would that money buy?
That's right. So I mean, I think $1 trillion is the sort of amount of money which it's not enough to solve at a stroke the biggest problems that we as a species or civilization face, right? It's not that level of amount of money. He couldn't solve cancer at a stroke. He couldn't solve global poverty at a stroke. However, I mean, it's the sort of amount of money which any sort of charity which is in any of those fields and working on would be very grateful to receive. So it can make an impact on any of those causes. But no, it's not quite the level where you can just sort of click your fingers and all our problems are solved.
I'm starting to feel sorry for him now. Maybe he's not that rich after all. But when you look at Elon Musk, he's the richest man in the world, but he's the least philanthropic. I mean, I know there's no rule that says rich people have got to be kind and helpful, but should there be? I mean, when you've got one man holding so much of the world's wealth.
Well, I mean, it's a very good question, and if you're asking my personal opinion, I have views on that, and I'm sure your viewers will as well. And I think there's a very good case that that is just so much money that I mean, I guess it's not the money alone that one would want not an individual not to have. It's not that he can buy so much stuff, but money, of course, brings power. And once you've got $1 trillion, you've got a lot of power, and you can see him exercising that power. So I think there are questions for our society. I mean, of course, particularly society in the United States, where he's based, but I mean, global society. Do we want individuals, to have that much power? I think it's the power to concentrate on rather than the actual sum of money.
But there are monopolies commissions to ensure that companies don't gather that much power, although they don't seem to be working very well at the moment, particularly with SpaceX and all of the satellites that they're throwing up at the moment. But should there be, in the ideal world, is it possible, I don't know, to say that that concentration of wealth shouldn't be in so few hands? Because you're looking at the world's billionaires now, and they are getting richer and richer and richer, and hoarding more and more of the world's wealth.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I mean, the top, well, we always talk about the top 1% of the richest people, but actually now we're talking about the top 0.1% or 0.01%. And that's right, more and more wealth is being concentrated in a smaller and smaller section of society. Now, could we do something about that? I mean, it all depends on political will, and it depends on the law of the land. And at the moment, there's no laws stopping him. So in that sense, yes, he can have as much money as he wants. But I guess it'll be a question for the American people whether that's the system of laws they want, that people can just have a sort of unlimited amounts of wealth and therefore power, or whether we do need to. That is something we need to address. But I think it's. Again, there's not a quick fix there.
But as a mathematician, right, which is a subject I was terrible at school.
Don't say that. I hate it when people say that.
I really was. But as a mathematician, it's just interesting for me to understand, just very quickly, because I know this is a bigger conversation, that if all of the money gets funneled to fewer and fewer people and leaves less of the money to the rest of us, how do we then spend the money they need us to spend to keep them rich?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's really an economics question rather than a maths question. So, I mean, I can have a go, but you might want an economist to put me right. But I mean, I think one thing that people would say, who might want to defend, the top 1%, is that yes, wealth is being concentrated, but if the total wealth is growing, even if individually our proportion of it is shrinking, we may still be getting richer. We're just getting richer slower than people right at the top end, would be, I guess, the counter argument.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm getting richer.
I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah. But again, when we look at the mathematics of it, and when you see the billions of people in this world with hundreds of millions with literally nothing, and then you've got these few people at the top who've got literally everything, and then there's the rest of us in between. I'm just wondering how that balance can it keep going? Can they keep growing at that rate? Because it's gone up since COVID. It's been this huge mushroom. Yeah,
I mean, it has. That's right. I mean, inequality it's growing at an extraordinary rate.
So there you go, inequality growing at an extraordinary rate. Absolutely fascinating. I still do want an answer to that. If they're getting richer and we're getting not as richer, how do we, if they've got all the money and we don't have enough money, then how do we keep spending money to keep them getting richer, which is what they want to do? I just don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't get that side of capitalism. I think capitalism is the best system, but it has its flaws, and maybe that's one of them, is if you've got that gap just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're getting poorer and they're getting richer, then how... Because we know that doesn't trickle down, right? They hold on to that wealth. That's their wealth. So it doesn't really trickle down. That's been completely debunked. The whole idea that Reagan had, I think back in the 80s, he said that the great thing about rich people is that the money trickles down, and that's been disproved by economics and math geniuses and all these people. So I just don't understand, if that gap keeps getting bigger and bigger, how it just doesn't topple over, that the whole thing just doesn't collapse. I don't know. Maybe if you know, you can give me a call. I'd love to know what you think. What would you do with $1 trillion? Because Musk is the world's richest man by far and away now, holding the biggest single wealth of any human being on this planet. And he is the least philanthropic. So he doesn't give any away. He holds it. He holds on to it. What would you do with $1 trillion? What would you do with $1 billion? $1 billion? Wow. Can't even imagine that sort of money. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. This is Talkback. Well, this is Talk, and I'm Petrie. And I've just been reading about Mackenzie Scott again, right? She was married to Jeff Bezos, and they divorced in 2019. And no one has ever given away more money as fast as Mackenzie Scott. In less than 7 years, Scott, who was disposed of more than 75% of the Amazon shares she received from Bezos. So she got rid of 75% of the shares that she received from Bezos, and she's donated $26.4 billion to more than 2,500 groups. And only Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Melinda French Gates have donated more, but in both cases over a much longer time. Scott is also one of just 4 of the nation's top 25 philanthropists who have given away 40% or more of their fortunes. Together, 17 of the top 25 givers have given away at least 10% of their net worth, but only one of the top 12 people in America has reached that threshold. Warren Buffett is the top philanthropist of all time. And it just absolutely fascinates me because I'd be her. I would be Mackenzie Scott. I definitely would just be giving money away to organisations that I felt were worthy of some extra support. Yeah, she's given to, in all, 186 organisations received collective 7.2 billion in 2025, enough to make her the world's most generous philanthropist last year. It's also the most donated in a single year since Forbes started tracking it in 2012. And there was another guy, no, it wasn't on this list. I've got another list. Oh, here it is here. Who is planning to give away, Warren Buffett's planning to give away 99% of his money. And there was another guy who's a Bitcoin billionaire who's also planning to give away 99% of his wealth. So wealthy is he that it won't affect his personal standard of living. And he'll give away 99% of his wealth. And that's real power, right? That's the real power that you would have as a billionaire or a trillionaire, is to help the people that you wanted to help. That to me would be amazing, to be able to do that. One of the things that I know that I would want to do is set up places for older people to go to during the day, so they could have social lives and not be lonely and things like that. That's what I'd want to do across the country. That's one of the things I'd want to do anyway. And to help the homeless. So those are the two things that I would do straight away with that sort of money. But there you go. That's just and that would make me feel great. So that would be a wonderful thing to do. Trevor has said, this is Trev in Manchester, says, "Hi Petrie, I can't comprehend having that sort of money. But one thing is for sure, they would want more. It's a power thing, and he wants more. And so it is about power. Musk wants more power. And I think that is what this money means to him, is that sort of the power that comes with it." Right, back to calls. Kevin is in Hull. Hello, Kevin.
Good Tuesday morning to you, Petra.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Oh, living the dream.
Living the dream, aren't we all? What would you do with $1 trillion?
I'd look back on the planet of what I've took away from it to make it.
Good point.
Oh, just one thing. Claire Muldoon. Mm-hmm. How long have you known her?
A long time. Why?
Well, she's very subtle and she's easy listening to.
Yeah.
But she's not diluted, if you know what I mean.
What do you mean?
No, I don't know.
She says what she says.
Yeah. I mean, you, her, and Stephen Fry on the same desk. It'd be a wonderful night.
I'd love. You know how much I love Stephen Fry. I'd give anything for that. I'd pay him $1 trillion. I'd use all my money. If I was a trillionaire, I'd say, "Come on, Stephen, let's do a show together."
Yes, I was going to say something, but I will not. Anything to get him on the show.
Anything to get him on the show. I would, within reason, obviously, within the law.
I'll get the spandex out. Let's put him on the show.
See what you can do. See what you can do, Kevin. But yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually, is to look what you've taken out of the planet, because there's no doubt, is there, that throwing spaceships up to space and all of that, and the fuel that's being burned and all of those things, the damage that you're doing.
It's like the batteries on the Teslas and electric cars.
Yeah.
It's a good point. It's the minerals that come out of the earth, but who's taking them out? It's not, it's third world countries and whatnot.
Yeah,
and it's a bit like SpaceX. I'm sorry, I'll just talk for a bit and I'll let you talk. Basically, there was a company before lockdown, and they didn't build anything. They're saying they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and their shares rocketed, and then they plummeted. Now, like SpaceX, but it's a false hope. What's he going to do? Go to the moon? Put people on the moon? No, they can't sustain. Take people to Mars. Every 5 years, it's a shorter cycle between Earth and Mars. What if something goes wrong? Like the European Space Station, they have an oxygen leak. It's not... I think it's false hope. Yeah, he's built a rocket and the main body can come down and land. Beautiful. But the thing is, at the end of the day, what's it going to be good for? Science experiments? Well, we're already doing that. I think it's,
I mean, we've got to have dreamers, right? You've got to have people like Musk who are a bit off the wall, who are going to go, right, we're going to go further than human beings have gone before. And we need that. I mean, there would be nothing would be invented ever if we didn't have kind of strange dreamers to dream about these things. We'd still have a horse and cart. There wouldn't be anything else.
Don't you think these people, well, it's a strong version of saying there's a mental illness, but don't you think they're like megalomaniacs? They're just, more is never enough.
I do think that there is yeah, of course there is. There has to be a level of narcissism and megalomania and wanting more and more and more, and that is a personality trait, isn't it? It's probably a bit of narcissism in there, thrown in there as well. But I think we need those people. I do think that we need the dreamers and the schemers and the planners and the people who think, yeah, why not go to Mars? I mean, I don't see the point of it, but if that technology that he's developing to get us to Mars can provide a world with, let's imagine, hydrofuel, so water rather than petrol, then that's great, because a lot of things that were invented for space travel are now used commonly in everyday life, right? And they were designed for space, and now people are using them because that's what dreamers do. They push the boundaries. They shake up the status quo. And I think that he is a disruptor. Elon Musk. I mean, I'm not fond of his politics. I think he's a bit of a weirdo, but he is a disruptor, and he has achieved probably amazing things, and will go on to achieve amazing things. Whether that will take us to Mars or not, what's the point of that? I don't get it. Probably not. But no. I think we need people like him, and thank goodness for them. But then when you see them holding all the money, it's kind of like, well, what's the point in having all that money if you're not going to do something with it? That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, the thing is with me, he wants to be liked, he wants to be worshipped. But him and Trump fell out. Now, isn't it strange that since they fell out and he got that golden key, he's pushed his businesses to the next level to earn or amalgamate that type of money and power? Mm.
Yeah, I think that they are connected as well.
He cannot take a slap on the face.
No.
Basically.
No.
That's what it is.
No. I mean, he's a completely odd fish, right? He really is a strange character. And I think he's probably got some social issues and some awkwardness about him. But if that has meant that I don't think he's a genius. I think what he is talented at is spotting geniuses.
Yeah,
I think
he surfs on other people's waves and makes the waves bigger.
But and he makes those waves bigger.
It's a bit like him in charge of Microsoft. Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Now, when COVID came out, he bought all this expensive equipment and labs. We were going to find a cure, right, for COVID. And he brought the best scientists in and this, that and the other, and he invested a hell of a lot of money. But it wasn't like the ones that broke it, give it away for free. He was going to charge. So the maths was in his madness. How many people on the planet, how much can we sell it for? But unfortunately,
I'm not a fan of Bill. I'm not a fan of Bill Gates. I mean, what he's doing to agriculture in the United States of America at the moment is absolutely appalling. It's devastating what he's doing to agriculture, and it is too much power in one person's hands. He's buying up all the land. He's patenting the seeds that he's using. He's suing other farmers if a seed flies over and is planted in their land.
How can them farmers compete? They can't.
They can't. No. And that is an amalgamation of power. That is the food source of the United States in the hands of one man. That is not right. This is where power and gathering and money gathering needs to be controlled, because at the moment it is unimpinged. And Bill Gates will end up owning all of the decent agricultural land across the United States and then determining what people eat.
Yes, but it won't get them one ticket to Mars when Earth dies, will it?
No, I don't think you and I are going to Mars. I think the closest we'll get is a chocolate bar.
As long as it's the old-fashioned 70s one, which was like the new version of king size. That was a natural.
That was the size of a brick, wasn't it, when we were kids?
Like wagon wheels. Wagon wheel was.
They could actually put them on a wagon. They were so big. Not anymore. They're pathetic. Right. Yeah, they're not the same at all. Look, I don't have a problem with people being a bit bonkers and thinking outside the box and doing all these things. We need them. I don't have a problem with people making a lot of money either. I think it's the power that goes with it that frightens me. It should not be in the hands of...
Petrie, we'll say goodnight. Let's see if we can squeeze one more in.
I'll do that. You direct the programme. All right, Kevin, you take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye now. Ernie said, if I was a trillionaire, I would spend the rest of my life searching for people who are in a situation where a loved one is in a terrible situation that could be resolved with money, like the parents of a child or the husband or a wife or vice versa who have a terminal illness and know they can't afford to save their loved one. Yet there is a treatment if you've got the money. Life is so precious, you only have it for such a short time. If you live for 100 years, that's such a short time in the grand scheme of things, and there are no pockets in a shroud. And that's from Ernie. Yeah, you've got to get this, you can't take it with you as much as they try. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and we're talking about the mega rich. The name I was trying to think of earlier on is Changpeng Zhao, who is the crypto billionaire, and he's planning to give away 99% of his crypto wealth. And it's really interesting this, because this talks about how they spend their money and what money they give. So how he spends it: historically preferred a minimalist lifestyle with no permanent home or vehicle fleet. Recently, significant amounts of his capital go towards compliance infrastructure, foundational tech startups, and legal expenses. So he's dedicated to building a completely free, gamified digital education platform for underprivileged children worldwide. And he has expressed plans, like I said, to give away 99% of his wealth, and he has got a lot of it. Changpeng Zhao, where is he? 110 billion in cryptocurrency. Binance is the company. So he lives a very, very simple life and plans to give away 99% of his money. Mark has said, why should Elon give any of it away? Just because he's put the effort and risks into his business, he has to give it away to people who won't help themselves. Well, it's not about people who won't help themselves, is it? You're not telling me that people in sub-Saharan Africa are languishing in poverty because they won't help themselves. I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think there are people who can't help themselves, and they were just unlucky enough to be born into the environment they were born into. And Elon Musk, may I remind you, was born into an incredibly wealthy family. He didn't earn his money any more than Donald Trump did. They were gifted a vast fortune, and he has been able to invest that vast fortune. It wasn't like he worked every day as a kid on a rubbish tip in Mexico, gathering bottle lids in order to make a couple of dollars to feed his family. Right? Please, let's just remember this while we're hero worshipping Elon Musk, is that he started off incredibly wealthy and has gone on to take that wealth and make it more. What would have happened if he'd started with nothing? Who knows? He may not be anywhere near the man he is today, but he started off with a vast fortune that you and I could only ever dream of. So he didn't have to help himself, he was helped. Cecil Rhodes made billions, created a country and set up scholarships in Oxford. He's hated for his money by the left. Why bother giving it away? He's not hated for his money, he's hated for how he got his money, which was in slavery. So, yeah, I mean, Mark, Elon Musk is not a self-made man. Let's not go too far in hero worshipping, all right? That's a bit sad, isn't it? Marge has said, any member of the royal family, not money donated to them through their charities, their money. So, interesting. Right, let's go to the calls now. And Tony is in Lancashire. Tony, good morning.
Morning, Petrie. How are you?
Oh, I love that accent. I'm very well. How are you?
Not too bad. I agree with Grace and Kevin, what they were saying earlier on. Grace, where she was going on about hunger, where we were going to solve the hunger, it didn't do. And not only that, Kevin, as well, you were going to say something about, I thought, like, they seem to spend more about space than the problems what we've got on the planet. One of women callers said this a few months ago. I think you had a conversation with someone about this or something. I don't know what it was now. I can't remember it a while ago. But when I was listening, she turned around and said, we've got more problems on this planet than we're in space. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think Kevin made an excellent point, is to give the money at least to repair the damage that you've done to the planet by making the money you've made. Yeah. Because those spaceships and the fuel and like the batteries for the Tesla and things like that, they don't come without a cost to the planet that we're on.
Like another thing you were just saying earlier on, how he got the help like how he gets his money. He helps, like what you were going on about just a minute ago.
Yeah. I mean, he was gifted an enormous fortune
Yeah.
by his
But
father.
like,
Neither him nor Trump are self-made.
Yeah, but not a lot of people get that chance. So.
No. And who would he be without
to
it?
To be honest, I don't know what's bigger, his flaming gob or his flipping head. He's one of two, you know what I mean? He can be, but he comes across to me sometimes as bloody both.
He's an odd character and a real oddball. But you have to say, I mean, what he's done with Starlink has been nothing more than extraordinary. And I think it is because he has a talent for spotting talent.
I don't think he has. You get to help people spotting the talent. I don't think he has, really.
Do you reckon that people have told him who to invest in?
I think, and try and get ideas of other people.
Well, if you're that rich to start with, you can get an awful lot of help getting richer, right? You get an awful lot of support and help.
In the first place, the guy's a flipping idiot.
Well, I don't think he's an idiot. I think that I think he's certainly known how to spend his money to make money, but he certainly has.